Okay, you're recording.
Why don't you start recording for a second?
Stop. Okay.
Yeah. Power, one present, one energy. Just right where we are. And we say thank you. Thank you for this extraordinary opportunity to just be, to be in the presence of the divine as each and every one of us, to yield, to know, to love, to express, to heal. How good it is. We're knowing in this moment right now that there's only one of us here. That the work that we do here is more than just for our own personal selves.
Yes.
The work that we do here is for the healing of the planet. It's for the healing of consciousness, past, present, and future. That everything that we do here has a rippling effect. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. So let's do little check-ins here. Something that you're grateful for and what brings you to this marvelous experience of this thing called life here with us today. Why don't we start with you, with the Right Reverend Rev Ellis.
Congratulations, honey.
Rev Ray. I haven't seen you since the graduation. How you doing?
I know. I'm not sure I've seen me since the graduation.
Can you turn it up? Yeah.
Is it too low? Let me turn myself up there. How's that?
Yeah, no, we're good. We need
Okay.
to turn this up on our end.
All right. I'm here because I am committed to oneness.
All right.
And I am grateful to be sucking air today. And everything else is gravy. You know, you wake up on the green side of grass, it's a good day, period.
I love that. On the green side of grass.
It's you know, the craziest word spoken at graduation between some of us was, "I'll see you in class next week," because we still have to finish out the summer term. So I'm getting all that wrapped up and really diving into this position that I have before I'm even licensed at Mountainside, and it's an interesting journey to be in that place that really demands day-to-day, minute-to-minute attention of the divine, not my personal agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And how that shows up in, you know, just the world and this work of inclusion. It really is one and the same, and I couldn't be happier.
Good.
So.
Good. That's actually the work that all of us need to be doing, but we just haven't figured it out yet.
Well, jump on in. The water's fine.
Good.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to check in online? Okay, go for it. Unmute.
I can check in. I'm just, for some reason, for no good reason at all, except I made the intention yesterday. Ernest Holmes, apparently toward the end of his life, said something about that we should emphasize mysticism at all times, which, in a funny way, I mean, that's kind of a fancy word saying the same thing that Rafe just said.
Yes.
You know, to always open to the divine and allow that flow wherever we are, whatever we're doing. and to recognize it in everybody else as well. Anyway, that's my check-in. Good to be here. I somehow don't have the Zoom address in my calendar, so I better hurry up and get that there.
All right.
I'm not late.
Good.
Anyway, hi.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Well, you know, one of the reasons why Ernest Holmes had to keep reminding people of that was that he kept trying to take that out, the mysticism, and to get into all of the science and the law of it, you know, such that what he had branded as the science of mind and spirit got changed into just the science of mind. And at that particular time, that organization, Religious Science, had gotten in the hands of lawyers. Yeah, really. And that's probably caused the split back in the 1950s that just got healed, you know, last decade or so, that I helped facilitate that reintegration of the two of them. So yes, keep the mysticism in there.
He said something about, I forget what famous person also said to him, that there's no religion without mysticism. And I guess that kind of put him on the campaign to remind everybody that everything he was talking about was being united with God.
Yeah, I would
and
agree.
not getting your latest whatever you wanted.
I would agree. I think it's the mysticism part that elevates it into that.
That's right.
Definitely. I've been reading a lot of Joe Dispenza lately. And he says like he's really dedicating his life to helping to heal that schism between science and spirituality, and how he really believes that science can be used to help bring about a new spirituality. Because it can codify the stuff that we need to know and understand in the realm of the mysticism. But they're not separate from one another. Yeah. Marilyn, did you want to do a check-in?
Hi. I'll just say that I'm grateful for just the confluence of events in my life lining up so synchronistically beautifully, and grateful to have a great break from my fun classes to run home and do this and then run back and have some more good experiences. And thank you for the comments about mysticism. I think that takes it deep, and it takes it into the ethers, for lack of a better term off the top of my head, to get above what I might call the mundane, even though it isn't, but to be able to step back, breath, and be in the consciously. It's all the mind, but to be there consciously, in that consciousness, creates a different perspective.
Okay. You're cutting out on us when we're listening to you. So next time you speak, if you can, get a little bit closer to the microphone.
Okay.
That might help. Thank you, though. Thank you. Anybody else online or on phone want to check in?
This is Martha, and I'm grateful to have been mindlessly running through Facebook while I'm taking a lunch break and see Rafe post this call coming. I'd rather not have a mindless lunch. Let me be in the presence of the glory of our consciousness and be a little bit more focused. And also just to get me out of truly out of the details of the rest of my day, of the paperwork and the schedules and the planning, and be present in a wholly different way. So I'm very grateful to be here.
This is good. Well, welcome. Welcome. We certainly appreciate your being here. And there's 6 of us who are here in the room, as well as 3 online. Just FYI, it sounds like you might be calling in from the phone. So
Yes.
there's a nice little gathering of us here. This is good. So I missed some of you who were online. This is it's good to have you back. Before we get started on some of the things that we've been talking about, before we get started on some of the new material, is there anything that anybody who has any questions or comments or epiphanies that you want to share about things that we already have been talking about, so that we're constantly growing and building upon what it is that we know? Okay.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kaylee. We did a little workshop here Saturday about the next strategic planning for the next 20 years of inner life. And two really, to me, really interesting things happened. And it were kind of how we talked at the very beginning of this class, how the Declaration of Independence was a well thought out document, but it got us astray, and it kept getting us further and further astray, so that we kind of rewrote the parts of the Declaration. But anyway, the two that were so interesting to me is the Rev had said through a spirit letter that these rights that we're endowed with are a package that comes with rights and responsibilities. And some of the people in the room said, "Ooh, responsibilities, that doesn't feel good." And I don't mean to be making fun of them at all. And several people had this reaction, and I think it's exactly what we've been talking about, is we in America are so into our rights. And, oh, we can go off and do any old darn thing we want, and we forget that, yes, there's rights, and it's paired with responsibilities to the planet and to each other and to ourselves. So I think pairing these two together is really, really powerful. And the fact that some people are a little squeamish about it is actually proves the point of why responsibilities has to be in there. And the other thing that was so interesting to me is the Rev was describing, again, agapeo love, the love of the will. And this is the first time I've ever heard you say this, Rev, and I think you need to say it over and over and over again. It's hard. It's hard. And again, some people were, oh my God, I'm going to have to work. It's not all going to be a bed of roses. But we need to say these things, because I don't know about the rest of the planet, but in America, we're pretty much, if it's fun and if it's sugar-coated and it has a lot of calories, we'll dive right in. But I think it's time for us to grow up. I mean, the human race, to grow up and say these charges that we have been given by whatever God you want, whatever name you want to call God, these charges are not easy, and they are asking us to step up in our maturity and step up in our the charge. So I just think these two things, responsibilities and it's hard, are wonderful messages that need to be implanted. And I saw Reverend Rafe laughing, so I think we're on to something. Rafe, it's hard to call you Reverend Rafe, but I'll get used to it.
Rev Rafe. Yeah, go ahead. Akia?
I've got something too. I've been reading Melody Beattie's Make a Miracle in 40 Days. I think that's what it's called. One of our, the students in ministerial school was, said she did a workshop on this and the people loved it so much. Anyway, in the beginning of the book, she talks about saying thank you to everything. And in particular, the thing that's different is saying thank you for all her negative feelings. Everything she's mad about, when she gets any kind of a negative feeling like that, she just says, thanks for that. Thanks for that. She got so into it, she went on some kind of a search campaign to find all her negative feelings so she could go, thanks for that. Because, I don't know, there's something about it with her anyway, and I imagine everybody else. When you do that, it just opens things up a little, and you can start to see something you could do or a solution. And I think for this particular time, when we have number 45 in Washington, and so many crazy things going on, it's really great every time we get mad to say thanks for that, because it will open up our minds to possibilities of what we can do to make a difference.
You're absolutely 100% Correct. It's an attitude of gratitude. And I one up you on this, is that we not only need to say thank you about everything that happens, we need to say thank you before anything happens. Okay. When we live in a state of gratitude, it shifts what we see.
Mm-hmm.
We make thank you a response. We make yes a response. We make love a response. We make faith a response. These are not on the back end. We make joy a response. It needs to be on the front end. We need to experience and express a sense of joy before the day starts, before anything happens. Because if we are living in that vibration, then it transforms and it transmutes everything. It's a praying spirit. You mentioned Ernest Holmes before, and Ernest Holmes is the founder of, or the creator of what we know of as the spiritual mind treatment, which is this 12-step affirmative prayer process. And we tend to think of it as a practice, as a technique, when in fact it is the anatomy of a prayer, and it explains the terrain that consciousness must go through in order for any prayer to be effective. It's not linear, even though it's written as 5 steps. It's all there. It's recognition, unification, realization, thanksgiving, and release. And when you say that Beatty is talking about that we need to have this attitude of gratitude, the thanks, for us to be able to have these miracles and these prayers, it's because of this. It's because without it, you miss it. Without it, you can't see it. Without the gratitude, you can't see the fullness and the sufficiency. Without the gratitude, you get into lack and limitation consciousness. Without gratitude, you get into that sense of separation. You get into the othering. You get on the triangle, the victim, villain, hero triangle, because a lack of gratitude becomes ingratitude. There was something that the Imam used to say, the Imam Michael Salah, who was the one who got us into prison outreach. We still are close to him from 17 years ago when he first got us in. And he used to say to the men all the time, he's a Muslim chaplain. He said, and this struck me so hard, he said, the lack of gratitude is the first sign of an unbeliever. The lack of gratitude is the first sign of an unbeliever. And I have to check myself on that, because when I start getting into a lack of gratitude is when I'm starting to act like an unbeliever. Yes. So I need to be able to read this.
I can read it too.
Okay, it says, go ahead.
From Rev, the bed of roses includes the thorns.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
That's, everything else is hello.
Okay. Yeah. And I'd like to respond some to Kaylee to what you said about the responsibilities and the fact that, yes, it is time for us to mature and it is time for us to grow up. And that's one of the things that concerns me the most about the way that our current administration is acting right now in regards to practically anything, is that, you know, this kind of like America first, America first, America first. Like, what the heck? You know, that we live in a global economy. We live in a global world. You don't have your own air. You know, you don't have your, it's just not that kind of party. And that we're all in it together. This last weekend, I was at the Pachamama Alliance board meeting. I'm on their board of directors. And one of the founders of the Pachamama Alliance is a guy named John Perkins, who is known from this book that he wrote years ago called Confessions of an Economic Hitman, that he literally used to be one of the ones that would go in, you know, from the corporations around the world and manipulate world markets and people and everything else. And he had to come to Jesus, is what I call it, revelation, like the guy that wrote Amazing Grace, and he flipped on the other side. And he's been one of these, you know, world renowned. So he was just talking about a meeting that he was at with, you know, world leaders and with Putin. And, you know, a lot of the people in the room were upset when he was saying this. He says, but Putin was really clear. He was like, look, you know, you spy on us, we spy on you. Like, everybody spies on each other. Okay, we already know that. But what's important, and he named these important things: global warming,
Yes.
you know, terrorism, nuclear warfare. You know, he named these things. It's like, this is the stuff we need to be talking about. You know, often everybody's like, you know, okay, it sounds like you're endorsing Putin. It's like, no, this isn't about endorsing Putin. It's that some things are so big and so huge that we're all on that page. And what does it say, I say, about us that our nation's not? You know, that we would leave the Paris talks, that, you know, what the, I mean, like, really, especially when we're one of the biggest polluters in the world, you know, consuming 35% of its resources. And then we're going to leave the table that's talking about global warming. This is not assuming the responsibility. There's no question about it. And it really is important that we do understand that there are both rights and responsibilities. And as you were talking, Kaylee, it really hit me how much this is really part of the problem. It comes back to that notion about us having a crisis of inclusion, how inclusion causes a certain kind of a crisis. That when I look at how issues are framed and shaped, and I haven't looked at it through this lens before, so there's something I'm seeing very clearly. I'm trying to articulate it. That as we have looked over the past few months at the framing of issues, particularly between how, like, the blue side, quote unquote, and the red side were framing, you know, these issues. And we're talking about all the ways in which we were missing each other and not hearing, and even delving into what were some of the underlying values that were driving the way that people were saying things and this kind of divisiveness that's there. And I'm seeing really clearly now this ways in which we've gotten rights and responsibilities mixed up, such that the anger on the part of some people as what they thought was granting some people their undue rights was framed in the minds of those people as just assuming the responsibilities that they had. So if you take, for example, something like marriage equality, which was sort of the last big civil rights battle in the Supreme Court, to those who are anti-marriage equality, in their minds, the government gave undue rights
Oh.
to people who shouldn't have those rights. But to the courts that were making the rulings and the advocates and everybody else who was involved on the pro side, they had the opposite attitude.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that they were giving people rights. It's that they had the responsibility to protect the rights of these individuals that had been unduly denied.
Mm-hmm.
And that's huge.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
That's a huge, huge difference. And I can see now, this is also one of these, this is going to really stick with me, one of these places where the rubber is hitting the road.
Yes.
About what is it that we are supposed to be doing or not. And some people saying we're putting some people at unfair advantage, or, you know, we're letting them in and we're giving them these rights to do things. And we're saying, no, it's just the responsible thing to do.
Yes.
It's
That's
not
good.
showing
That's good.
favoritism. Yeah, it is our responsibility. And that's where the rubber is hitting the road now. Not should we be giving these people rights or special privilege or blah, 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 but what is our responsibility here? From policing to immigration to abortion issues or whatnot, there's this theme here about what should we be providing each other and doing for each other. Not just in the name of, quote unquote, I'm my brother's keeper, but what is the vision of the world that we have? And what's my responsibility in making certain that that's the world that we need to have?
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Mm-hmm. Reverend Deborah,
Yes.
what I don't get is, what do you mean by undue rights?
If I had $1 for everybody who thought that I shouldn't have married my wife, I'd be very wealthy.
Very wealthy.
Undue rights.
Undue, that it wasn't my right to have.
Okay. Okay.
I'd be very wealthy right about now if I had $1 for every one of them that thought that. Yeah. Undue means undeserving, that it's not yours to have.
Okay.
That you got it somehow by mistake or whatever.
And who decides what's undue? What is your undue right?
Well, that's the point of the conversation. This is what we're saying, is that it's a matter of perception.
And that's wherein lies the responsibility.
Yes.
That's how I see it.
Yes. And it takes us back to the beginning. You know, the question that you ask is a really good question, and it's another one of those where the rubber hits the road. In this work that Kaylee was talking about that we were doing over the weekend, that when you look at the Declaration of Independence, it says we hold these truths to be self-evident. Blah, 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 equal, blah, blah, inalienable rights, blah, blah, blah. So when you say who gets to decide, this is one of those pivotal things where ultimately, if you get beyond all of the legalistic stuff, ultimately people are claiming that they have the rights that they have because God gave it to them. Regardless of what that right is. As we saw in the early work we were doing, that God gave them the right to white supremacy. You know, that God gave them the right to whatever male supremacy. That it was this inherent thing that's self-evident that I don't have to prove. So we are forever reestablishing, so to speak, what is that most fundamental truth. The reason why this is important is because it can't be proven. You can't, it's like 1 + 1 = 2. You cannot prove 1 + 1 = 2. You cannot do that. If you accept that 1 + 1 = 2, then there's nothing you can't do. You know, up to, you know, quantum physics or whatnot, but you can't prove 1 + 1 = 2. It's the starting place. It is the assumption. Okay. Mm-hmm. So the spirit letters always say, what is your 1 + 1 = 2? Mm-hmm. So for those who were anti-marriage equality, male, female equals marriage is their 1 + 1 = 2. That's their 1 + 1 = 2. It can't be proven, but it's so fundamental. And here's where we get really stuck in all this stuff. It's just like with mathematics. 1 + 1 has to always equal 2. There cannot be a spot where 1 + 1 does not equal 2. If there's a place on the planet, on the universe, anywhere, where there is an exception to 1 + 1 = 2, then the whole mathematical system falls down. This is extremely important for us to understand. There can be no exceptions to your 1 + 1 = 2, because it dismantles the whole system. And if we don't get that, we miss it. So if you were to take something like marriage equality, and some people say, well, you know, what difference does it make? If you got a few couples over here that are married or blah, 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 you know, it's like, well, you know, no. Most people they can have their rights, they can have domestic partnerships, we'll give them all the legal benefits and blah, but marriage cannot be anything other than male, female, or the whole institution of marriage, which is the foundation of family, falls apart. And if we don't get that, then we miss what we're up against. What people are resisting is the way the change reorders their world. There really aren't so much fighting against this one or that one as it is they're trying to protect their own selves or their own reality. We can see that in immigration. We can see that in employment. We can see that in shooting people in the streets. It's not, oh, my life was at stake. And even if it really wasn't, there was no gun, I thought my life was at stake. We've given officers that kind of, I thought that I was in danger. And my protecting my danger was more important. It was just more important. There was no responsibility for anything else than to protect my reality. We think they're going to do something to us. You know, we think they're going to hurt us or harm us. We think that these Muslims are here going to, you know, take over and they don't believe in God and blah, 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 blah. Most of these people have no idea what a Muslim believes.
None.
I mean, like, really.
None.
They're not You know, they're not saying, well, you know, we don't like them because they believe. They got no idea. It's just that it's different, and that makes it threatening. Just as it's different, so I think that's going to threaten mine. Does this make sense?
Oh, yeah.
What do some of those comments say?
So this is back when we were talking about Melanie Beatty, make miracles in 40 days by Melanie Beatty. When we experience a negative feeling, say thanks for that. Allow the openness on the vastness of spirit to reveal solutions.
Okay.
And she also wrote, this is from IKEA, who wrote that. She also wrote, John Perkins has an update, The New Confessions of an Economic Hitman, copyright 2016.
Yeah, he just came out with another one. Yeah.
Rafe writes, we belong to one another. And Barbara wrote, justice, food, water, shelter, healthcare, safety, education, etc. are not special privileges.
No, they're not. They're not. Yeah. Any comments about some of this in this framing about rights and responsibilities and this 1 + 1 = 2? Because that's what we're arguing now. That's what's up against, is a different 1 + 1 = 2. A different one.
And I think the new 1 + 1 = 2 is not all people are equal, which you could get around. The new 1 + 1 is all people are equally endowed. It's a whole different way of looking at it, and it's truer, if that makes any sense. It's more 1 + 1 = 2. All people are equally endowed. That does mean everybody. That doesn't mean any special niches, any special declines. It means all people are equally endowed. It's a very powerful phrase, Rev Deborah. Who said it? We worked on it.
That phrasing came to me on Saturday as a result.
But it becomes irrefutable in a different way.
We were getting stuck. A lot of people were getting stuck on this idea of created equal, and like, what does that mean? They were getting stuck on the idea of created equal as though equal meant uniform or same in some kind of way. And it's like, no, that wasn't the point. The real point is that whatever these endowments are that the Creator has given us, some people haven't been given more than other people.
No more, no less.
Right.
Equal.
Yeah.
Anyway, I wanted to say that I took the little card with the new Declaration of Interdependence to a couple of friends of mine who were not inner-lighters. And I wanted to get their take on it. They loved it. Good. They loved it. And we talked about a couple of things that I was not clear on or uncomfortable with. That thing about radical, using the word radical, it kind of throws me off. But once they explain, oh, don't pay attention, it's a buzzword. It's the latest buzzword. But then I was thinking about when you or Kaylee had suggested, think of how others will respond to the new declaration. Not so much how we will respond. And I was thinking about that word radical, and that people may or may not respond in terms of, whoa, that sounds very militant or very radical.
Yeah.
Also, I noticed there's a bit of redundancy. If I had the card in front of me, just
remember, we'll go over it before we adapted it.
Yeah, we'll go over it.
Yeah, there's redundancy when you talk about all people and inclusivity, and there's this third phrase that brings up essentially the same thing. So I figured, well, either you overlook that or you really want to make a point.
Well, they're different things.
Yeah, well, I have to have the card in front of me.
Yeah, it's okay. We're not gonna go over that now, because we haven't prepared,
yeah,
so
we
they
haven't
can't
shown
see
it.
it.
This was the other thing. this was the other thing about the responsibility. I was kind of hung up on that, not clear about, you know, what is my responsibility personally, as in terms of this planet. And then I said something about having the right to choose what I'm responsible for. I'm looking at it differently now. I mean, this whole thing is, you know, my perceptions on this whole thing is changing.
Good.
So yeah, it is good because I don't want to be stuck anywhere. Good. So yeah, thanks.
Good. So we will clue everybody in at another time. Yeah, to that discussion that we were having here on Sunday, and bring everybody into that. Were there?
Yes, there's a couple comments from Ray. How we individually express our citizenship should never determine the rights of my citizenship.
Yes.
Marilyn, for those of us not here, could you please explain the context in which this word crafting is situated?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, a later time.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're not gonna get all into that now. But we will share it, and the genesis of it was looking at the first part of the Declaration of Independence and the way that it put forth the 1 + 1 = 2,
right,
that this nation was built upon, and just reworked it a little bit to make it a bit more enlightened and broader and more inclusive, to expand that 1 + 1 = 2. No, not expand it, because that was the genesis of it. What we have been doing thus far is taking a certain infrastructure and expanding it. We have been squeezing people into it, into the equality, kind of like group by group. You know, opening it up to people on race, opening it up to women, opening it up to, you know, LGBT people, opening it up to people with disabilities. It's like every single time people have to claw their way into these baskets of like so-called rights. And what I have been contending here throughout this whole For Such a Time as this series is that we need a new platform.
right.
that we have never really established that it's for everyone. We haven't established that yet. And that we need to like go back to the beginning, so to speak, and rethink that so that it doesn't have to be that way. It kind of reminds me a little bit, and I'm deeply informed by this, with something that had happened in my own life experience. I've shared from time to time that back in '84, I won a precedent-setting lawsuit, which set the precedent for the inclusion of sexual orientation in the California Civil Rights Bill. And it finally won unanimous opinion at the appellate level and was certified for publication. And then the California Supreme Court refused to hear the case and let that appellate ruling take place. But what that has to do with here, and why it was such a phenomenal win, and informs this discussion here now, is that when they ruled in our favor, they made it very plain that the list of things that you should not discriminate against at the time were things like race and religion and nationality. That those things, that list was meant to be, quote unquote, illustrative and not exhaustive. That was huge. That these illustrative, just an illustration of just an example of the kinds that you think, ways that you shouldn't be discriminated against, but not exhaustive, not the limited framework. They said, we're not trying to create all of these protected classes. That's not the point. If the discrimination is arbitrary, don't do it. It's like, don't do it. So they said, no, sexual orientation is not in the Civil Rights Bill. No, it is not. But it is meant to be included. It was meant to be included. So it was huge because it was the first time that LGBT issues were ever placed under the formal banner of civil rights anywhere in the country. That was huge, huge, to set that precedent, to say we're not trying to claw each group in. We're not going to keep writing and don't discriminate on the basis of this and this and this and this and this and this. We don't need all that. Understand our intent.
Right.
Understand our intent. And the other thing that's huge in this, that has to do with this discussion of rights, was that we sued under two things. We sued under the local LA ordinance, which specifically said that you cannot discriminate in public accommodations based on sexual orientation. This was a restaurant that had refused to serve my former partner and I in their quote unquote romantic section. What the lower court said initially was that they were going to dismiss that law because it had never been tested before and they weren't really sure how you could define sexual orientation, blah, blah, blah. We also sued under the state's civil rights bill, which said you cannot discriminate on the basis of sex. Because clearly, the reason why we were not served is because of our sex, that we were both women. Okay? And I will never forget what the courts kept saying. The courts kept saying, that's true. There was no argument that we were discriminated against on the basis of our sex. However, if it had anything to do with our sexual orientation, they weren't sure what our rights were anymore. That was extraordinary. We know you've been discriminated because of that. However, if it has anything to do with this, we don't know if you have the rights anymore. And it was with that moment, I really got it at a visceral level, how what was my right suddenly became a privilege that could be denied me or not me, that what once was my right suddenly got affected by this thing called sexual orientation. We're doing the same thing now. It's like, yes, I know we have, freedom of religion and protected of religion. However, if it has anything to do with the fact that you're a Muslim and might be a terrorist, okay, it was the same logic about me in the restaurant. Like somehow or another, our presence was offensive, that somehow it was the same stuff that they were saying about Black folks at the lunch counters, that like just our presence was offensive to the public eye, in this romantic section. And it got to be, really deep. Really big up there. Just, even Ms. Magazine carried it. It was like a really, really big, big suit. Because we were also the national test case for the right to be out. Just visible, unbeknownst to us, like who knew? And our attorney was Gloria Allred, who's representing a lot of the women against Cosby. She's like, like top notch. But we have to be careful of this. We have to be careful of this way where, yes, we think that everybody has the right to life and liberty, except maybe if you've been associated with criminality. Well, yes, we should all be free from slavery, but maybe if you've done this, that carves you out. Well, yes, everybody should be able to do the American dream and, buy a home, but if you're in this red line district maybe our bank shouldn't take a risk on you besides the fact that your credit rating is better than the other people in the other district. We keep coming up with these sort of excuses of why not you.
The carve-outs work the other way too. You're granted more.
Oh,
You
of
carve
course.
out, you get more.
Yep. Yep.
And I think what we're saying now is no more carve-outs.
No.
The complete list is everybody.
Right.
What's
Right.
not to understand about the word inclusivity? I mean, it doesn't get any bigger than that. And like Reverend Ray once told me, Callie, you got no choice. We're part of the oneness. Remember that, Ray?
But it goes back to the 1 plus, but
Yeah.
but it goes back to the 1 plus 1 equals 2. Okay? %80 of the white evangelicals went red.
Yes.
That's phenomenal. I'm not saying all evangelicals, because the black ones sure didn't do it. All the white, 80% of the white evangelicals went red. And what I'm saying is to say, as we've talked about before, is that inclusion is not an evangelical value. It's not even something that you're striving for. In fact, it is the opposite. There's a heaven and there's a hell. And that God is going to separate for all of eternity. He's going to separate the good from the bad in all eternity. So this notion of separating, this is God's will. This is the way that God's going to work on earth as it is in heaven. So if you already have this belief that there's certain people who aren't going to go to heaven, don't deserve to heaven, ain't going to get in heaven, you're not going to create a heaven for them here. Because that would kind of be antithetical or something, that that if you already believe that whatever, because they're Muslim, they're going to hell. Whatever, because they're gay, they're going to hell. Because they're atheists, they're going to hell. It's like whatever that is, then you don't feel responsible to make sure that the playing field is level. It's not supposed to be level. In fact, it's your responsibility to make sure that it's not level. And those of you who've been leveling it are betraying us. Those of you who are leveling it are desecrating us. You are denigrating us. The blue wanted to say that the red people hated. They didn't see themselves as hating. They saw themselves as loving. I love God. I love country, and I love family. And it's my responsibility to save this nation from all you heathens that don't love God, that don't love this nation, and who don't love family. Look at how you're living. Looking how you're changing all the meanings of everything and gutting it out and diluting it and all the rest of that. They didn't see themselves as hating anybody. Quite the contrary. They were acting out of love.
Question. Where did the idea that that God loves everybody? He makes his sun to shine on both the evil and the good. and his rain to fall on the just and the unjust. Where did that all go?
Well, it isn't that it went anywhere. It's that the Bible is a funny book where you can find enough passages to justify practically anywhere you want to stand.
Yeah.
And you'll find just as many references. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're true. Like, just because it's in the Bible doesn't necessarily make it true. It's just in the Bible, you know? It's like it's different states of consciousness. There'll be stuff, you know, they're gonna, you know, separate the wheat and the tare, and the vengeance and the wrath, and God's gonna come and smite and curse your nation, against those who have sinned, against them, and Armageddon and the whole apocalypse, all of that. If you interpret it a certain kind of way, you can get that out of it as well. So for people who fear all that, they're trying to get, quote unquote, on the right side of God. And part of being on the right side of God is throwing you under the bus. That part of the way that you prove your saintliness is by how much you separate from. I remember a couple of years ago, I looked at something that was on the coffee table in my family home in LA. And it was the centennial program of the denomination that I grew up in. Their centennial celebration of the written program book. And I opened it up, and the first thing that struck me was the board of trustees and how it was like 13 photos or whatnot, and they were all distinguished looking African-American males. And just how rare that is in anything in our society to see 13 distinguished looking African-American males all on one page. So it's like that struck me. And the fact that they were all male. The fact that they were all Black didn't surprise me because it's a Black denomination. But reminded me once again that the women they won't ordain women. But as I was reading the purpose statement, now this was just a couple of years ago. I'd never seen the purpose statement. I was like damn near 60, and I'd never seen the purpose statement of my denomination. And as I'm reading through about 3/4 in, it actually said, and we are here to live holy and separate lives. The word separate was actually in the purpose statement. Wow. In the purpose statement to be separate. That's why the concept of inclusion is radical.
Got it.
Because it is not this foregone conclusion that it's the natural way or how it ought to be.
I was the only one that reacted to that. My friends accepted it. They loved the way it was written up as we, when we did the changes.
Oh.
So that was good.
Oh, what you'll find is that most people will say that, of course, they're for inclusion, except for.
Right.
Yeah, it's
It's getting rid of the accepts.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, of course I believe in inclusion. Everybody's welcome in this nation, blah, 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 except for.
Well, then it's not inclusion.
But that's not how they define it. Is what I'm saying is that the mental construct is, yes, I am inclusive, except for. And this is, yes, I believe in oneness, except for, what about this one? What about that one? And this is shifting that 1 + 1 = 2 into saying there are no exceptions.
Right.
You know, you hear me preach about this all the time. You believe in the oneness or you don't. That you look for, how can you look for the and? How do you bring them in? Not how do you push them out?
When in the 60s, I was a charter member of the Sweet Adeline chapter in Diamond Head in Hawaii. And our president was a Polynesian woman. And we had a couple of other people that were not white. We never even really thought about it until we looked at our thing, which said it was an organization of white women. And we went about the process of getting that changed. Where I really, the awesome moment for me was when we sent a letter to International and said, we're only 20 people. That's what we need to be on stage. What about our president? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, well, for purposes of the clause, we'll consider her white. And fortunately, one of our members, a white woman, was much more aware than I was. And she said, well, what if she doesn't want to be considered white? And it made such total sense that our chapter just went to the floor with it. And it was changed within a few years.
Wow.
So I've had to look at kind of my own chagrin that I didn't get it right away. You know, it was like, oh, well, that solves it. And then Marcia says, well, what if she doesn't want to be white?
Bingo. Right there. You know, and you just described the experience of people of color in this nation. It's like, for the purposes of you working in this company, you know, for the purposes of you being whatever, we'll consider you white. You know, you're just, we don't see color. You're just invisible to us. We'll just kind of act like it's not there. It's just not, you're one of us, of course. Like you're an honorary white person. But that's the way we can get through the cognitive dissonance.
Right, exactly. I'm so grateful for Marcia.
Yeah. No, that's it, like right there. Yeah. Well, and it's, you know.
This is so interesting.
Yeah, it is. Margaret, you were going to say something, and we're going to start to
say,
close
well,
out.
I'm confused. Where did this, and he makes his sun to shine on the good and the evil, the just and the unjust. Where did this come from? Is it in the Bible?
Yes.
And so everybody just refuses to admit that it's, well, I don't know.
Well, Margot, but all I'm saying is that it's all there. You know, people would say in their interpretation, you know, what Jesus says, you know, I am the way and I am the life and I am the truth and nobody comes to the Father. And Jesus also said, know ye not that you are God, and greater things than I did, like, will you do? It's what I'm saying is that it's all there. It's all there. And which is why it's important that we don't always throw the baby out with the bathwater, because the same Bible that says servant obey your master, and that black people were black because they were under the curse of Ham, and all these other things that the colonialists used to subjugate black people, the abolitionists found other parts of the Bible about freedom. And, you know, we're all created, you know, one and share the same oneness that they used to anti-slavery. So it's like the same religion was pro-slavery and anti-slavery. But it's I don't want to be flippant about this, but it's important that we understand this, because that's our leverage for change. Our leverage for change is to go to people and remind them of the other parts. Remember when I said Martin Luther King took Christianity and crammed it down Christian throats? Gandhi took English law and crammed it down English throats. That showing the hypocrisy, showing the inconsistencies, not to help the other people, but to say, if you really want to be as good of a Christian as you think that you are in contradiction to be a slave owner. You create the cognitive dissonance in them. You can't justify your Christianity with the mandates of Jesus to love. So this ability to bring out the finer nuances, to bring people up to higher levels and vibrations is really important. You know, we're not going to get there. That's why you hear me say that I really think that this next wave is going to be Christian on Christian, evangelical on evangelical, for this like healing of the nation. It can't be from outside. Secular people can't get through to evangelicals with secular arguments. It's only going to be the moderates. I think you even sent me an article on that. You know, how the moderates are stepping back up to the plate and saying, we're no longer going to acquiesce this nation to the most far off extreme fundamentalist conservative views to put the face of Christianity. We're not going to do that anymore. So they're doing that exact thing that you're talking about. So no, wait a minute, the Bible that I believe in gives me responsibility. The Bible that I believe in, and it's going to be like toe to toe, so to speak, in that. But we won't get there if we denigrate people, throw them out. Oh, this is bad, you know, in the Bible. No, that Bible is the liberating as well. As well. We actually have to affirm where people are and bring the best out of that so that they can recalibrate.
Recalibration.
Yes. Yes.
So there's a couple of comments. First of all, Barbara says, well, not in America. She has a question, not in America, but what about evangelicals in other parts of the world?
Well, as we've seen, you know, evangelicals in other parts of the world don't believe the same way that they believe here in the United States on practically any issue. From, you know, we saw from global warming to women's rights, to, you know, abortion or criminal justice or capital punishment, that we're out of step. The United States is out of step with the rest of the world's evangelicals.
Rev Deborah, I have another question.
Which she wasn't finished yet. Oh, he was reading.
And Rev says, we have to get beyond identifying people with their behavior. As long as we maintain this equation, we will continue to separate individuals in our attempts to distance ourselves from behaviors we dislike. The Bible is both a weapon and a tool, depending on how we use it.
Yes. It's to forgive us, for we know not what we do. Forgive us, for we know not what we do. You know, we got to separate out the two. Last couple of comments.
Well, I was going to make a comment about, you know, the Bible, it seems like it's gone through so many interpretations. And when I hear someone like you who's actually studied the origin, it's like the Bible out here doesn't necessarily say what was being said there. It's more in relation to what's going on in the society at the day.
Yes, and the Bible's not anything in particular. The Bible, you know, bibliography, you know, Bible, it's a collection of books that's, you know, like over thousands of years, you know, period. So, I mean, you've got all kinds of, you know, consciousness and evolution and things, you know, and shifts that are changing. But more than anything, there's a spirit.
Yes.
There's a spirit of what's being conveyed. that you have to get into.
But then what you just mentioned about the evangelicals of the world thinking quite differently, somewhere I have an article that I downloaded from online. I think the woman's name was Deborah, and she's worked with evangelicals.
Yeah, this is the one we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, and she, two of my fellow evangelicals, and here is the only place where I think more people need to know about that.
Well, yeah, true. And I would say that it's beyond just evangelicals, that when you look at American attitudes, period, we're out of step with the world. From the importance of being a global citizen and the importance of even simple things like teaching our children a second language. And I mean, I can go on and on where we're, you know, like you start off saying, we act like we're in this immature little sandbox bubble.
We teach our children to be immature too.
Yeah, and we just,
what are you going to do?
we just need to grow up.
Said with love, but we do.
Yeah, I have a question about
Yeah.
references that I've heard you make a number of times, going back to the beginning. How far back are you talking about?
When I say back to the beginning, I'm talking about back to the original vibrations. I'm talking about back before there was religion and back before even language. I'm talking about. Yeah, I mean the beginning. You know, when we were coming out of the earth, literally, and still in a oneness and a harmony with everything. You weren't split and separated and all of the rest of that kind of stuff. We need to go back.
So what I've come up with, as long as we're looking back that far, and that's what I thought you meant. What about the original endowments from the creator of our spiritual qualities?
Yeah.
How about going back that far? And because those were our birthright.
Yes.
The spiritual qualities are our birthright. So if we took it from there,
well, that's
and expanded on the consciousness.
But that's what I'm trying to say. That is what I'm trying to say. That the rights aren't about behavior and actions, but that we are first and foremost spiritual beings. And we all have been endowed with joy and love and peace and creativity. We're all equally endowed with those things. There's not more joy that's in one person than another. There wasn't more, power or beauty or creativity that's been given to one person more than another. There's different circumstances and whatnot and our ability to cultivate it, but that there's certain fundamental things that we all have, and that it's our responsibility not to get in each other's way of being able to be and express those things. We're going to have to close this out.
One more. Ikea. Oh no, there's two more. Well, anyway, Ikea quotes scripture. Okay, just a second. There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. We love because he first loved us. John 4:18-19. Reverend Rafe, the most fundamental aggression to ourselves, the most fundamental harm we can do to ourselves is to remain ignorant by not having the courage and the respect to look at ourselves honestly and gently. That's a quote by Emma Children.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. She was just here at the Multiversity. That's 1440. True. We are not here to judge. We're here to love. The unifying love. And to love everybody. Everybody. Even the ones we think are unlovely. To love the people who are not loving us. And to find a place to stand in that so that we can heal the woundedness of division.
And it ain't easy.
And it's not easy. It's not easy. If I can quote one of my most esteemed and beloved colleagues, Bishop Yvette Flunder. Actually, we were right in this room for Sister Monica Parker's funeral, memorial service that was here. And you remember Bishop Flunder was the presiding minister. And she looked at me, this was just the perfect quote. She says, she speaks very eloquently. She says, now, I love everybody, just some with a little more difficulty.
It is so true.
And I thought that was just perfect.
Yeah, that's so true.
That's perfect. So don't let the difficulty of it all stop you
Yes.
from doing the loving.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So let's close out of here, and I'll see you next Wednesday. Good, good, good. I love everybody for being present. Love your comments. Are we posting these, or do we have access to the archive?
They should be being posted.
Okay, well, theoretically, these are they're being posted. I'll make double sure on that, so you should be able to tap into this afterwards or to share it with somebody. And eventually, I do want to take clips of these and YouTube them.
Yeah.
You know, these were kind of choice moments and discussions. And thank you to all of you too that have been going to the PayPal link there and making contributions. I do appreciate that as well. So,
bye, online people.
So let's sing our way out of here. Sing with us. We sing our theme song, I Give Myself Permission. Okay. All right. I give myself permission to be all I can be. I give myself permission to live passionate and free. I give myself permission to be all I can be. I give myself permission to live passionate and free. Mazel tov, Reverend Ray. Hey, let us take this consciousness and multiply it. Multiply it. Amen.
I watched a 6-minute YouTube thing. These men trying to get a bear released from a tail he's got.
Oh, yeah.
Not one of them was thinking, I'm an activist, I'm going to get this bear up. They just were concerned about a being